In this lesson, we're going to be going over deployment of malware. In order to get the malware onto a user system, you've got to have some sort of mechanism to get them to execute it, because of course what you've got in your hands is an executable, and they don't typically run automatically without some sort of mechanism in place, either having the operating system deploy it automatically in the form of a service, something in the startup folder or something like that, or just getting a user to trigger the run of a program. So what we've got here is Zeus again, and Zeus is one of those pieces of malware that has a botnet connection associated with it. And the nice thing about Zeus is you don't have to worry too much about creating the malware yourself. They've got this nice little builder app, and you can decide the various things you want to do with it. It comes with a configuration file, and of course we can edit that configuration file. We can make all sorts of changes. Now, once I build the bot executable here, I've got a little dialog box here saying where do you want to save it to. So it's calling it bot.exe. Now what I want to do probably is call it something like Elf Bowling, or some sort of name that is going to get people to install it or run it, or something along those lines. I'm going to save it like that. You can see here that the build succeeded, and I've got myself a bot. Again, though, you've got to give it a name that somebody is going to want to execute, and you've got to be able to get it to that person. Another way of getting malware into the hands of users is to use something like a wrapper. And what a wrapper does is it takes a piece of malware in the form of an executable, and it wraps it inside something else, and what we end up with is basically a Trojan horse, because it looks like one thing when really something else is going on. So I've got here a directory with Elite Wrap, and Elite Wrap is a piece of software. It's about a dozen years old or so now, but it still works pretty well. A wrapper for a piece of malware, and I don't really have a piece of malware. What I'm going to use is the system notepad, which I've copied into the directory here, and I'm just going to use that as the example of my piece of malware that I can wrap up. So I've got Elite Wrap, and I'm going to say that the name of the output file here, I'm just going to say is install.exe, and I happen to have it here anyway, so I'm going to overwrite that. I'm going to perform CRC checking, and in this case, I only want a packet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use something called stuff.txt, and the operation I'm going to do is I'm just going to packet. My package file is going to be notepad.exe, and in this case, I'm going to execute that one. So I'm going to say operation 8, and for the command line, I'm going to say is stuff.txt, and I don't have anything there, so I'm just going to hit enter, and I've got my wrapped application here. So I'm going to go over to my Elite Wrap directory, and I've got this install.exe, which won't actually run under Windows 7 because of all of the protections that are in place, but if you had an older version of Windows, this would work, and what it would do would be to open up Notepad and also open up that text file, and that would be this text file here. So that's how you would use Elite Wrap in order to wrap a malware executable so that you could get it to somebody in the form of a Trojan horse so that they would run one thing expecting one result, and in the background you would be having something else going on, like you'd be installing your piece of malware or whatever it happens to be. So there are a lot of different possibilities here for getting malware deployed. Here's one example that I just showed you, which is Elite Wrap. Different ways that you may think about doing malware deployment.